As the play opens, we hear that Lata is going to give a performance, and the mridangam player has had a fracture. So the mridangam player cannot play, and that leads to Ratna and Jairaj's problems. And Ratna more so, she's deeply invested. And we come to on this page, kind of tells us that what exactly is the problem, and that gives also a glimpse into the festering issues that have been there with them. Jairaj is saying, what tension, there is plenty of time, you are worrying about nothing. Ratna says, nothing. Our daughter is giving a performance that will make her career, and she is not going to have a mridangam playing for her. How do you expect her to give her best? How do you expect her to dance? What will we announce to the President of India? There will be no dance tonight. Tell all those foreign diplomats to go home. In my life, I have had problems. Then Jairaj says, do not start. And we can see the fraying relationships coming up. And then Dattani is very good in showing us these tensed moments, and from ordinary conversations like it happens in our daily lives, you get to see the deep rooted, deep seated resentments and anxieties about relationships, and also long standing fights and issues that are not resolved. And one can see that in Jairaj and Ratna, and this section actually makes it very clear. Now, don't start problems which you know about but conveniently forget. That's what she accuses Jairaj of. Ratna, no, I did not go through all that to see our daughter's career finish overnight. Jairaj says, it's not. Let's not be dramatic. Finished just like me. Yes, your father was right. Dance has brought us nowhere. It's his curse on us. Nothing seems to worth anymore. Oh, it is also worthless. You should have listened to your father. He was right. We are never anything great, never will be, nor will be our daughter anything but an average human being. And you can see that this is Amritlal's ghost that seems to be present in their life. The spectral presence of Amritlal and those words, and it's all not only Amritlal's ghost, and what it represents is conservative voice that tells both of them that, like, it's the man of the house and the daughter-in-law who should not be in public dancing. And that's why he had told them that, like, you guys will be worthless, dance does not bring in money, so what is the worth of it? Usual advice that is given by parents, that, like, if it is not worth it, why are you doing it if it's not going to get you money, and that you guys will never be great, you are just average. And then Jairaj protests, saying that Lata is not average. If she can't dance, what else she will be? She can be. There were times when we did not dance, as Jairaj says, and look where we are. We are fine, at least I am. That's what Jairaj says. You are nothing but a spineless boy who could not leave his father's house for more than 48 hours. Jairaj says, Ratna, don't bring old things up. You stopped being a man for me the day you came back to this house. As I was saying, they left the house being frustrated by Amritlal's intervention, and also as you can see his scorn for both these dancers, that, like, you guys are useless kind of things, that you are not going to earn anything, you are not great dancers also, so just better stop it. So no appreciation for it. So they were frustrated, they left the house, and they did not have another house. So as you can see, for Ratna being a man, being a man means earning capabilities, also having a house, not being dependent on their parents. All these attributes seem to be the attributes of the man, that they had to come back to this house. And then Jairaj says, for 40 years you've been holding that against. You are right, I'm worrying about nothing because nothing is what we are. You are going mad, Jairaj says. Lata then tries to console, Mummy, whatever happens, I am going to dance at the fest, and for all those people and for you. Then Jairaj intervening in the conversation, will finding a musician make me a man? The question that Jairaj asks is like, will acting find me a man? It's also a kind of a rebuke towards Ratna and all others who think of manliness in these kinds of attributes, that like if I find a musician, will it make me a man? Because right now she said that you stopped being a man for me 40 years back. Sorry, for that day when we had to come back to this house, as they could not stay elsewhere. So this conversation gives us a glimpse of many things that are not there quite right between them. As you can see, the relationship has suffered extensively between Jairaj and Ratna, who are trying their best to make their daughter a world famous dancer, and then they are trying their best, but there have been certain interventions, and as I said, this is reflected in their conversation. If we move forward, we'll see more of these discussions on masculinity. As you will see, where Jairaj and Vishwas are talking, and he tells her about Amritlal and what is Amritlal like, and he says that Jairaj asks, tell me about your life. He is meeting Vishwas, right? As I said at the opening, Lata has brought Vishwas to meet her parents, and Vishwas and Jairaj are indulging in a conversation. Jairaj asks, tell me about your life. Vishwas says, my life, there is nothing much to tell. It has not started yet. It hasn't started yet. You can wait till 60 for it to start, and it won't. So your father is a panwala. Makes a mockery of it. Jairaj is not in a stinky, foul mood. Vishwas says, mithai wala, makes a lot of money. It is family business. It's okay. My father has really made good money from his buildings. Black money. Jet black. Buildings, is it? Yes. Strange. What? That's how my father also made his money. So you can see a relationship between Vishwas and Jairaj similar, because both their fathers made money from property. And much of it is, as he says, black money, ill-gotten wealth. And it also tells us something very interesting about nation and the post-independence realities. As I had mentioned, Amritlal is already a well-known social reformer and a social service person and a nationalist freedom struggle fighter also. That's how my father made his money. Buildings, yes. Then he elaborates. Houses, bungalows, bought them real cheap. When the British left, there was a real demand for bungalows. He made a lot of money. One of the richest men in town, Amritlal Palek, the Sethji of the city. Do you know what all he did with that? He spent all in reconstructing India. Sounds very patriotic, right? Doesn't it? All he did was to give out a lot of personal loans to friends and relatives. Gullible was my father. My father would not loan money to me if I wanted. That's what Vishwas says. Neither did my father. He gave to everyone except me. Why? Vishwas asks. Jairaj spills some parts of it. The craft of a prostitute to show off her wares. What business did a man have learning such a craft? Of what use could it be to him? No use. So no man would want to learn such a craft. Hence, anyone who learned such a craft could not be a man. How could I argue against such logic? The logic that he is talking about is that Amritlal accusing Jairaj that he was learning the art of prostitutes, which basically means dance, and especially classical dance. And there are a lot of studies about this. As you would know that the temple dancers, the Devadasis as they are called in many parts of India, the Devadasis were the people who engaged in classical dance forms like Odissi, Odissi and dances like Bharatanatyam. And they were the ones who carried it forward and two generations across, right? So, in this play also, Ratna goes to visit a temple dancer who is in her elderly age, who is quite old, but she goes there because she says that she is one of the only few living legends who can pass on the knowledge that is there, because otherwise people don't know those kind of dances because people don't learn from them. As the temple patronage went down and the entire system of Devadasis was feeling pressure from various corners, many of them fell into disrepute itself, and there are studies about it, about what happened to Devadasis and everything, and it garnered a bad name that they are from being temple dancers and being like valorized for their role in the temple economy and in the temple social cultural life itself. They gradually were associated with flesh trade. And then that's what Amritlal, and then this is again a very reductive view of what happened in the entire post-independence era itself. And their dance form is thought of as the dance form of the prostitutes. That's what he says, that like what is the need to learn this dancing? What is the requirement to learn this kind of disreputable, dishonorable practice itself? And here we come to something that we'll discuss a bit later in terms of the idea of tradition and modernity, and in terms of nationalism also. Because as I said, Amritlal is a national figure trying to be progressive, and is very passionate about India and its causes, forward thinking and liberal, but he somehow does not care for the heritage itself when it is done by his own people. Jairaj and Ratna are trying to preserve Indian heritage, but he links it to a prostitute's wares, as he calls it, right? So, you see a dichotomy that is emerging in the discourse and rhetoric of this discourse and rhetoric of nationalism, which is related to the idea of gender itself, and that poses very serious concerns about the rhetoric of nationalism. And we'll come to that once we finish with the discourse of masculinity itself. As Jairaj kind of harps on it, that learning to dance is a bad thing. Learning to dance is not a masculine performance, in that sense that masculinity is deeply related to how you are coming across as, right? So, learning dancing is a way in which kind of compromises your masculinity. That's what the accusations towards Jairaj have been, that because he is a dancer, he is somewhere not a man himself. And then we'll see in many parts of the play something that is again and again harped on, that Bharatanatyam and the symbol of it is Shiva, who is thought of as a masculine god himself, the destroyer Shiva, the aggressive god Shiva itself. And Shiva doing Bharatanatyam, and that's what the play ends with, the image of Shiva dancing. So there a man and a male god dancing is thought of as the epitome and embodiment of godliness, and his masculinity is not thought of, is never thought of to be in crisis, whereas someone who's trying to emulate those dance forms is thought of as not being man enough, because he's a dancer, some kind of effeminacy, some kind of a femininity has seeped into it, and thereby what Jairaj, through Jairaj, Dattani seems to be harping on is this crisis of masculinity and how gender gets formed in our society, and that seems to be based on the idea of gender as performance. And we have already seen Ratna also accusing Jairaj of not performing those roles properly, performing what is ascribed to the gender roles like masculine man, that what is a man supposed to do, what is a woman supposed to do, how a man is supposed to look in India, how a woman is supposed to look in India, what are the roles of the man in the household, what are the roles of the women in the household. All those things are very strictly thought about, strictly applied to, and Amritlal seems to be the person who is applying it here. It doesn't mean that other people are actually free from those conventional ideas. If you go on to look at it, very interestingly, this becomes a discussion early in the play itself, where you get to see it in Vishwas and Lata's discussions themselves. So, if you look at it, this section here tells us a lot about this idea of gender as performance. We have influential theories by Judith Butler, who talks about the idea of gender and sexuality and in terms of performativity itself, and we can look at it in terms of our own realities that are there, that how gender ideas get solidified thanks to repetitive performances of a certain kind, that like as I was saying, that what are the roles and duties of men and women, and how, like if we look at through various kind of objectives, like what are the roles and duties of men and women. Men are supposed to be outside, women are supposed to be in the domestic sphere, the men are supposed to earn, women are supposed to take care of the domestic household, like how do they in terms of look or appearance, men have a certain kind of appearance, women are supposed to have long hair, all those kinds of things are there, right? So you will see that in this conversation that goes through flashback, and as characters shift roles, you will have this conversation where Amritlal and Jairaj confront each other, and Amritlal is not happy about his dancing, and he already tells him that like that I don't like you dancing. Why can't you do something else? I can't have a decent rehearsal in this house. Amritlal says, you can't have a decent rehearsal in this house. I can't have some peace and quiet in my own house. It's bad enough having had to convert the library into a practice hall for you. And why did you do it? Jairaj asks. Then Amritlal says, I thought it was just a fancy of yours. I would have made a cricket pitch for you on the lawn if you are interested in cricket. Well, most boys are interested in cricket. My son is interested in dance, I thought. I didn't realize this interest of yours would turn into an obsession. And then here, as you can see, between manly and what is considered as masculine and feminine, and you can see cricket is masculine. Most boys like cricket. Dance is not a masculine thing, it's a feminine thing, as we have been told. It's prostitutes also, much more worse is that it's linked to prostitutes profession itself. So I didn't realize this would turn into an obsession. Didn't you have your obsessions? You mean if by fighting for your freedom, it was, yes, it was obsession. You had yours, now allow me to have mine. So what Jairaj does is to compare his interest and devotion to dance to his freedom fighting. In one way, he is talking, both of them are talking about India and its heritage, but the discussion here, more than India and heritage, seems to be colored by gender. That what should be a man's way of preserving India and India's heritage itself. How can you even compare the two? As far as I can see, I can. As far as you can see, where is dance going to lead you? That's what Jairaj was telling Vishwas. You remember in the earlier section that we looked at. If we hadn't gained independence, where would your revolutions have led you? I would like to see what kind of independence you gain with your antics, the independence to do what I want. Then Amritlal says, but I have always allowed you to do what you have wanted to do, but there comes a time when you have to do what is expected of you. Why must you dance? It doesn't give you any income. Is it because of your wife? Is she forcing you to dance? And you can see conventional patriarchal discourse that comes in, and as I said, through very subtle gestures, you can see Dattani exposing masculinity in their discourses, that the wife is the domineering or the person who influences the man. It goes back as old as to our epics or the Western epics, the idea of Eve as the eternal temptress, the person who has the sway over Adam. In that sense, is the wife who is kind of influencing it. Then Jairaj says, nobody is forcing me. She may be by influencing you, maybe it's her, not you. The one thing that I regret, consenting to your marriage. Don't pretend. It suited that image of yours, which is a liberal minded person, to have a daughter-in-law from outside your community. And you can see another discourse that is being critiqued here is the reformist discourse of Amritlal. Amritlal is touted, as I said, was a reformist, is a freedom fighter, and Jairaj exposes that image by saying that you got us married because it suited. You can tell people that look how good I am, how progressive I am, that I have consented to having a daughter-in-law who is not from my community. So in that way, reform also becomes part of the progressive masculine agenda itself. We had a brief discussion about this when we were talking about the idea of English education in India, about British bringing in reforms to India, whereby it propped up their image as the Mai-Baap of the country, that they are taking care of us. Here also you see a similar reformist agenda, and that's why their insistence on banning sati and other practices related to gender were also critiqued by many commentators, because this kind of a reformist agenda seems to play on the women itself, that the more progressive man is because it shows how he is progressive about women in their lives, right. So here the progressive attitude of Amritlal, who is not really progressive if you look at his entire ideas about what counts as masculine and feminine, seems to play out by doing this token gesture, that like he brought a daughter-in-law outside your community. And then Amritlal speaks a bit more about it, which also again then gives us a hint towards his rigid world itself, masculine ideas, and his punctures his progressiveness. Amritlal says, where does she go every Monday? You know and you don't tell me. Where are your progressive ideas now? Jairaj immediately counters. This is different. Why? Where is the spirit of revolution? That's what Jairaj asked. You didn't fight to gain independence. You fought for power in your hands. What I was earlier talking about in terms of reform being an agenda, Jairaj exposes it. That it's that probably that masculine urge to have power. You did not want reform. You did not want progressive politics. Basically, you pretended to be progressive so that you can have power. And that's why he is talking about where she is going, looking at her movements, tracking it, surveilling their lives. Why are you just as conservative as prudish as the people who are ruling over us? He compares them to the earlier rulers. He says that you only told us that they are bad and we are good because you pretended as if you were progressive. Now we see that you are actually not progressive. So this is also a kind of a disenchantment with the post-independence politics, right, and social scenario where society seems to be living in the same world, same conservative dark world filled with ideas of the past about gender. You are mistaken. Gaining independence was part of our goal and someone has to be in charge. It is what we do now that counts, and as you know, our priorities is to eradicate certain unwanted and ugly practices which are a shame to our society, like dowry and untouchability. That's what he reminds again to go back. What are the lofty goals of independence? That too, and you know perfectly well what I mean. You have no knowledge of the subject, you are ignorant, is what Jairaj tells him. That, like, look, you don't know even what you are talking about. We are building ashrams for these unfortunate women. He's talking about the Devdasis. Educating them, reforming them. Reform, don't talk about reform. If you really wanted any kind of reform in our society, you would have let them practice their art. The Devdasis are not allowed to practice Bharatanatyam or their art. And he says, pardon the typo here, encourage open prostitutions. He's saying, he's immediately linking Devdasis to prostitution itself. Send them back to their temples. Jairaj says, if you are serious about the reform, send them back to their temples, give them awards for preserving their art. My son, you are the ignorant one. Most of them have given up their art, as you call it, and have taken to selling their bodies. I hold you responsible for that. You have gone mad. Give them their homes, give them their profession. I'll not have our temples turned into brothels. It becomes a very snide, reductive discussion between the father and the son. I'll not have where you see the discourses of nationalism and heritage being colored by gender, that the men will decide what are these women going to do, and they've already decided that the reformist agenda is to give them home and all those kinds of things, not to make them capable or enable their professionalization. It's to keep them on those crutches so that they don't have an independent lifestyle, and in that way they are actually hurting the heritage of India or nationalistic goals of India rather than actually furthering the nationalistic goals that were envisioned during freedom itself. And Jairaj goes on to protest this. I'll not have my art run down by a handful of stubborn, narrow-minded individuals with fancy, pretentious ideals. Nobody's running down your art. It's the people who perform it, and for what reason. We are trying to all right, then you should be pleased that people from respectable families like yours are interested in reviving the dance. You should be encouraging us instead of being a hindrance. I have no objection to your efforts in reviving the art, but I definitely do object the people you are associating with. What exactly do you mean? Jairaj asks. Your guru, what kind of a family is he from? Again, so you can see caste and other kind of conservative ideals that seem to color Amritlal's sentences here, that what kind of family does he come from. His mother was not a Devdasi, if that's what you want to know, because he's already associated Bharatanatyam or Indian classical dance and this guru and Ratna's visits to the Devdasi. So he says he's not from a Devdasi, if that is what you are worried with. Why is your name being associated? Why does he wear his hair so long? Why do you ask? I've never seen a man with a long hair. As I said, the visage or the appearance also is a factor here. That what is considered as man, what is considered as woman. Long hair is traditionally associated with women. Why does this man have long hair? All sadhus have long hair. I don't mean them. I meant normal men. What Jairaj does is a very interesting subversion. He says sadhus who are thought of as embodiments of masculinity, they also have long hair. So how did we come to associate hair with something called masculinity or femininity? That normal men are supposed to look like this. Then who decided these kinds of categories is what his questions are. That who is deciding what gets categorized as masculinity or femininity, or why are these gender binaries so restrictive? If I want to do something, I cannot do this because I am not a man enough. And we have already seen these discussions, right? Already we have seen in terms of appearance what is masculine, in terms of roles what is masculine, from both Ratna and Amritlal. As you can see, as I said in the earlier lecture, both of them seem pretty close to the conventional ways of thinking about masculinity.